we have a hot-packed presentation with two esteemed experts from the industry in two very different perspectives to really assist you all in consulting and advising your clients who are, I'm sure, itching to take advantage of this program and get into the market, which is fantastic and such a great way to start the spring market. And so I do want to just remind everybody, please make sure that you are muted when you are participating to make sure that the presentations run smoothly. And if you have any questions, please put those into the chat. We will be monitoring them, and each presenter will have a short Q&A. Not to worry if your question is not answered. We will make sure that we get those answers from our presenters. And following our session today, we will send over the recorded session along with any of those Q&A answers that we didn't get to for the time that we have allocated. My name is Nicole Lombardi. I'm the Vice President of Sales at TFN, and I thank you all for joining us today. We have a very packed house, a lot of realtors who would like some clarity and some answers how to help their clients as it pertains to the HST rebate. And so without further ado, I am going to pass the stage over to our esteemed colleague and friend at TFN, Troy from BMO. He is going to present, you got it? Perfect. Always on cue. I love it. So without further ado, Troy, take the stage, do your introduction as only you know how. And just as a reminder for everyone, please be muted and put all of your questions in the chat. We'll be monitoring those.
Thank you, Nicole, and welcome everybody for joining us today. I'm really excited to be here. Just a moment of gratitude to the team at TFN for bringing us all together around such an important topic. It's on the colder side outside still, but the market is definitely heating up, and a lot of that has to do with the recent announcements from the provincial and federal government with respect to the GST and HST new housing rebate. That's going to be the focus of my time with you this morning. And after today, we're going to make sure that we have the ability to reconnect, whether by email or telephone, to continue the conversation and answer any of the questions that you may have. I'm generally going to cover this at a high level from the information that we have from the provincial and the federal government, and I will layer onto that the lens of a financial institution and how BMO will be looking at these with respect to the mortgage pre-qualification standpoint. Just to do a brief introduction to myself, it is really great to see so many of you here. And as people were joining the chat, I saw a lot of familiar names, so that's encouraging as well. But my name is Troy Jalovec. I'm the Regional Partnership Manager with the Bank of Montreal. And in my role, I work really closely with realtors and builders to create strong, mutually beneficial partnerships. And really the goal is to add value to your clients, to your business, and ensure that we're helping kind of streamline, create a really confident experience for all of your clients, and towards really making sure that they're making financial progress in the decisions that they have. After today, you'll be able to reach me at the information on the screen. I'm also going to just put that into the chat so that way you have a way to follow up after I move this slide. And I really do hope that we can continue the conversation as we proceed. I would say as the market heats up, before I jump into the core content, I would say there is a lot of excitement. With that comes a lot of questions and really curiosity from your clients as well as yourselves. In my role, I have access to over 300 of the best mortgage specialists in Ontario. These are individuals that deliver superior customer experience and are available whenever and wherever you need them. And I share this because really after today, everything is going to start with a conversation that's tailored around the specific scenario of your client. And this is the team, these are the individuals that are prepared to have these conversations. And if you know a BMO mortgage specialist already, that's really great. And if you didn't and are looking to meet one, I could be the catalyst or the individual to help make those introductions so that you have somebody that can work through that pre-qualification standpoint and help them access all of the great programs that BMO has available. To jump into the core content of our presentation this morning, I thought it would be really good to actually start with the first-time home buyer GST rebate. As many of us know, this has been kind of on the top of the agenda for quite some time, but officially passed the royal assent and became a law on March the 12th of 2026, so not too long ago. And essentially what this did was entitle first-time home buyers to remove the GST on new homes purchased from builders or on homes that they may be building themselves that are priced up to $1 million and a reduced rebate between $1 million and 1.5. And I share this, or I'm starting here, I think intentionally, because there may be a number of individuals on the line that have sold a pre-construction or a new home, we'll call it, to somebody after March 20th, 2025, which was the starting point of this rebate up until just a few weeks ago or last week, April the 1st, 2026, which was the starting of the expanded provincial GST HST rebate relief program. And so this still may be eligible for a lot of individuals who have previously purchased a new construction home, but don't necessarily qualify for the expanded rebate that is just kind of just entered into the market. Just a couple of things to reinforce here. The eligibility criteria are for new homes that are purchased from builders or homes that are built on land that an individual owns or leases. And it must be, again, must be done between March the 20th of 2023, and it must be completed before 2036. And I think, today, while we're having this conversation, we're going to be sharing a lot of dates. That's kind of one of the key pieces around the eligibility. And for that, if there's anything that, you wanted to kind of connect with me after today to review, I'm more than happy to do so. So for the GST rebate, anybody that purchased a home, APS is signed between March 20th, 2025. The home must be starting construction before 2031, and the home must be completed before 2036. Of course, these are eligible for up to 30-year amortization. This was a law passed not too long ago, basically at the end of 2024 in December. And I think lastly, one of the pieces that sometimes goes unforgotten is just like who qualifies as a first-time home buyer. And there are some distinctions that can be made based on a person's unique scenario. And of course, that's someone who's never purchased a home in Canada or in the last 4 years has not occupied a home in Canada as their principal place of residence with either themselves or a common law partner. And so that kind of distinction there might actually open or may have opened this program up to somebody who purchased prior to the April 1st expansion. Then we got some news, right? So this officially became a law on March the 12th, and then fast forward only like less than 2 weeks on March 25th, there is the outstanding news that Ontario is expanding the HST rebate. This would be eligible for really any home that's purchased from a builder or again someone else has built themselves on land they own or lease, and really this was a pledge from the Ontario government that really, I think was geared towards increasing the affordability of homes. And this contribution towards the temporary expansion of HST reliefs would be about $1.4 billion in provincial tax relief to Canadians of the province. And I think some of the the key distinctions here that we're going to continue to make in the language is that this is temporary, right? This doesn't expand as the same length as the original GST rebate for first-time home buyers, and we're going to get into some of those dates right now. So essentially, the Ontario Expanded HST Relief housing program is a temporary expansion. It is a proposal by the Ontario government, and you probably hear me say this a few times, but this proposal is still subject to federal regulatory enactment. And so really there are still information that we're learning as we move forward each and every day. But this temporary expansion essentially for homes valued up to $1 million would essentially look like a full discount or rebate of 13% of HST up to an equivalent of $130,000. And one of the key differences between the expanded HST relief and the previous first-time home buyer GST relief is that the rebate would be maintained for new homes valued between $1 million and $1.5 million. So really that increase in that $500,000 to the 1.5 mark was done with the consideration that many homes in Ontario communities do cost more than $1 million. So essentially up to the $1.5 million mark, that full 13% of HST of $130,000 would be eligible for anybody purchasing a new home. Between the $1.5 and $1.85 million, there would be a reduced amount of HST available. And after the $1.85 million, the original or existing $24,000 HST relief would then be available to those individuals. Later in the presentation, I've got a chart put together that really, I think, illustrates that from more of a visual standpoint and should help crystallize that for some of the individuals in the audience. In terms of the eligibility requirements, and I think this is one of the places where we're starting to get more clarity every single day, but essentially this expanded relief would be eligible for anybody that's entering into a purchase and sale agreement for a new home between April the 1st, 2026 and March 31st, 2027. And again, this new home, and I think this is one of the best pieces of news from this entire announcement, is that it can be used as a primary place of residence or a residential rental property. And so while the original GST first-time home buyer rebate was limited to only first-time home buyers, this expanded HST relief program is going to be eligible for anybody who's purchasing a home for the first, second, third, or fourth time, and also inclusive of anybody that's has intentions of being an investor and renting out that property. Generally, and this is kind of where I mentioned earlier, like the language that I'm using today is directly from the Ontario is directly from the Ontario website, from the budget announcement that came out the day following on March the 26th, where they mentioned that generally the same types of housing will apply that are currently available to the new housing rebate and the new residential rental property rebate. And this includes detached, semi-detached, condominiums, and townhomes or row houses. A couple of the additional really important dates when we think about the eligibility of this program. Again, for new homes that are purchased from a builder or the owner is building their own home and intending to use this as a primary place of residence, there are some distinctions here that we need to make and really, understand the differences between whether you're going to be owning and living the home or purchasing it to rent. So for an individual that's going to be taking it as their primary place of residence, of course, and this will always be the case, the APS must be signed after April the 1st and up to March 31st, 2027. And the construction must begin before December 31st, 2028, right? So they've entered into the agreement after April 1st, before March 31st of next year, and the construction of that home must begin before or on or before December 31st of 2028, where the home must be completed before December 31st, 2031. And again, I want to kind of create some comparisons here to the original GST first-time homebuyer rebate. If you recall, that home must have been completed before 2036. Right. So really some key dates in here that we need to keep in mind when we're having conversations with our clients to ensure that we're best advising them. And again, that's where our team of mortgage specialists can also be helpful. If the individual happens to be building their own home, again, there would be no APS signed, but the construction must start between that April 1st and March 31st timeline, and it needs to be completed before December 31st, 2029. We're still expecting further eligibility criteria, and those will be published on the ontario.ca website. Now, this is again another place where there's a difference between an individual that is going to be residing and owning an owner-occupied property and someone who is going to be purchasing a new home as a long-term rental. Again, these dates are always going to be the same, that April 1st to March 31st of 2027. So I think we're all really comfortable with that. But if it's going to be a rental and we're purchasing it from a builder, it will apply for any home that's already under construction, right? So I think this is really good news for the builders that are holding existing inventory on homes, so long as the APS is signed after April the 1st. But the home must be completed before December 31st, 2029, right? So I think what we might be kind of understanding immediately is, if we're going to be living in the property and it's owner occupied, we're going to have a little bit more time for that home to be completed than if it's going to be a rental. And so again, this is a place where we want to make sure we're working with our clients, understanding their timelines, their intentions around purchasing the home, and ultimately having those conversations with the builder to make sure that they qualify. In any event, right now, from a qualification standpoint at the Bank of Montreal, and I'll speak only to the way that we will look at it. Any incentive, right, whether it's a credit on closing, an HST rebate that does not increase the value of the home, the bank will not lend against. So if the home purchase price does not include HST, and that is going to be assigned to the builder, then we will lend on that amount that is identified in the purchase and sale agreement. And I think this is a really good thing, because it will kind of help with maybe some of the appraisal challenges that have persisted in the market over the last little while. So again, we will not lend against the HST rebate if it is going to be assigned to the builder, and the client will receive that as an offset on the statement of adjustments. This is the chart that I mentioned earlier that just kind of like brings it more visual. So I know I've shared kind of the amounts that it's eligible to, but I think this kind of just really brings it to life. It really shows that at the $1.5 million mark, between the million and the 1.5, someone is able to exercise the full $130,000 rebate. Afterwards, there was a reduced amount to the original or existing HST rebate of $24,000, and of course, as the purchase price increases, there is a 13% rebate on that amount. So for example, if the home is $700,000, 13% of that is $91,000, and that would be the full rebate that the person is eligible for. Because this is only available to individuals that are purchasing new homes, I thought it was going to be important to also tell you how BMO can help someone who's purchasing a unit or purchasing a home that is pre-construction. We do have the ability to provide firm approvals on the rate, on the income, and the employment of an individual for up to 36 months. So anybody that is entering into the spring market, purchasing a new home, it's going to be qualifying as part of this HST expanded rebate we will be able to provide them firm approvals. For the realtors on the line, that helps protect your commission and ensure that individuals are able to cross the finish line. Of course, rate is top of mind for everybody, and there's a lot of uncertainty in that space at the moment. But for any of our firm approvals on pre-construction homes, we do have the ability to convert to a market rate within 130 days of closing. And essentially what that does is give the person the protection and the peace of mind while the home is being built, but the flexibility at the end to get the best rate possible. And from an appraisal standpoint, when we start an application for somebody that's purchasing a new home, we have the ability to do what I'll call a desktop appraisal at the Bank of Montreal that in a lot of cases does not require us to do an appraisal on the property. If one is required, we have the ability to do that on plans and specifications. The home does not need to be 97% complete, and this comes at no cost to the individual. And so, as the market starts to heat up, as individuals and your clients are interested in taking advantage of the HST rebate, we should not be discounting the value of locking in a firm approval and protecting that purchase so that they're able to close on the home when the construction is complete. What I experience in my kind of role right now is a lot of people hesitating, waiting for rates to change, waiting for closing dates, and then ultimately not having a lot of time to navigate that final process of putting together a mortgage. And so with a 36-month approval, we have the ability to start that process as soon as possible and give individuals the peace of mind that they deserve. Lastly, we do have an amazing spring campaign offer. And again, I think this would coincide, right, with that HST rebate because it is available for somebody that's buying a home that's previously been under construction, as long as that APS is signed after April the 1st. And we have some cash back for those individuals up into the amount of $4,100 for new or refinance switch mortgages to BMO, and that additional $800 is just made up of an everyday banking checking account and saving account offer that provides an additional $800 in their pocket. So when you put all this together, I'd say some really great incentives from the Canadian government, also some great incentives to working with the Bank of Montreal, both from a protection, peace of mind standpoint, but also some cash back that we can make eligible for any of the homes that are, potentially under inventory and going to be closing within this summer period. Now that we've kind of gone through some of the core content, I've seen the chat, really light up at the same time as I'm delivering this conversation. So I might need to defer to Nicole on kind of if it's best to proceed with answering some questions now, or if we're going to come back to those at the end of the presentation.
Thank you. I echo the sentiment, and I love how everyone is super curious and is using the chat as we had asked. I do want to be very, very clear. We are going to get to as many questions as we can, but it is really important to be paying attention and listening attentively because there are a lot of the questions that Troy has already addressed in the presentation. We will send everybody the recording, so not to worry. You can, listen to this back and absorb it and get access to the information. And then a lot of the questions in the chat, as it pertains to how your clients would get these credits, Idan will be our second presenter and will address some of these. So I understand that we're all very excited and we want the answers very quickly. We are trying to move through the chats with some answers that are known per the statement. But Troy, I do think at this time there are a couple of questions that I think we can address for clients, for our buyers. So my apologies, brokers for their buyers. So one of them is for 36 months firm approval, does client need to verify documents again before 90 days?
Thank you. Yeah, that's an easy question. They do not need to verify documents again within 130 or 90 days. They do not need to have anything revalidated unless there is a material change to the application. And really, what that looks like is them potentially adding a borrower, so altering the original APS. Requesting a larger borrowing amount, so changing the amount of the mortgage, or changing the product that they're using. So, for example, if they've got a 3-year fixed 36-month approval, and at the end of closing, they'd like to go to a variable rate, then we would need to review the documents again. But if everything remains intact, we will not reassess income or employment or the appraised value at the time of the application.
Perfect. Thank you for that. And as it pertains to a home renovation, if we're, in the example provided here in the chat, an extension of the property, let's use this in the context of applying for financing for this. Does the HST credit apply here?
If it's a renovation and not a newly built home?
Correct. Yes.
That I'm going to have to take offline and return that question afterwards. I want to make sure I get the right answer, and haven't seen a lot of information.
I can touch on that.
Okay, perfect. Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you, Idan.
Again, I want to remind everyone, we are presenting obviously the information that is known to date, and that it is a very fluid conversation and a topic that with every day that passes, there's more information and clarity that comes through. And so we're not going to have all the answers today. We wish we could, but like Troy so eloquently put, this is an announcement, no different than what the first-time buyer announcement was that just recently passed into legislation. We look forward to it becoming legislation, but at this time, there will be a very stark difference between what we anticipate and what actually will happen once it is legislated. And further information comes from governing bodies like the provincial government, the CRA, on how it will flow through. And so the intention of today's topic is to provide you the perspective on how your clients are going to get approved via a mortgage by way of how we factor in the HST, and then how your clients would then apply for it. So this would be a really great time right now to identify from the pre-construction space that builders are doing it very different ways. And so it really is imperative that you confirm with the builder that you're representing or that you are bringing your clients to on how their APS is written. And so some builders are going to require their buyer to self-assign. And what that means is the APS is going to stay intact, that any and all legislative credits that buyer will apply for and will meet criteria to get credits for will be done post-closing. And so your buyer has to be aware of that they will not need those dollars and cents in order to close the home. Like Troy said, they're not going to get qualified against that credit. Other builders, my apologies, are assigning those credits back to the builder. And so once it becomes clear what those figures are, we know what's very clear is up to $1.5 million. It's a full 13% credit. And so some builders are assigning that entire credit over to them, and that will be a credit on closing, meaning the balance due on closing will be reduced by that 13%. Troy, jump in if I'm misspeaking at all. And so those are two very different scenarios that I think you have to be very mindful of as pre-construction realtors, because your buyer will need to understand what those differences are in respect to how they're going to move forward with the purchase. The other thing I want to make very clear, because it has come up a couple times in the chat, any agreement of purchase and sale that has been signed and executed before April 1st of 2026, the program does not apply for them. I can appreciate it. I can understand frustration. That is unfortunately not up to us as an industry, and I'm sure over the period of time, as this becomes legislation, lobbying groups will address that point and further criteria will be announced. No different from if we travel back in time when HST was first brought into our conversation and our library of language, there was a lot of different iterations that then came through from the announcement through to the execution of it. And so let's all just be very, very mindful that this is a very fluid program that we're all learning more and more as it comes and becomes clear. And so we will provide Troy and Idan's contact information. If you have questions that you don't feel we've answered today, first and foremost, my apologies. We are getting through as many as we can, but we really encourage everyone to reach out to our experts in this industry. They'll do it better than we can. And so we will make sure that we have all of their contact information for you in the eBlast. Reach out to them, ask them the questions. They are fantastic partners and align with every single one of us in the industry. And we're all doing this together. And so just be very, very mindful that if you have the question, it's better to get it answered. And if, just like Troy said, if they don't have the answer, they'll take it offline and find you the answer as best as they can with the information that we have in this moment in time. All right, so Troy, do you want to add?
I just wanted to share one more thing. I don't want to take any more time from my my co-presenter today. I just wanted to mention one more thing with respect to the qualification standpoint. So anybody who purchases a pre-construction unit and the builder is going to assign them to file the rebate themselves after they've purchased a home, that rebate that they're entitled to cannot be part of the down payment. Right. So when we're pre-qualifying a client, they must show proof of down payment over and above a rebate or an incentive that they might be entitled to. And I just wanted to make sure that was known because a lot of these rebates are quite significant, but cannot support the down payment. Thank you.
And thank you for saying that. I think that is, we're going to learn a lot more in the last half an hour of this call, but the sentiment for every realtor on this call, if your buyers need that relief in order to purchase, this isn't the program that's going to get them over the line. This is supplementary and something that is great to infuse the market, but exactly what Troy said, it doesn't adjust for what they qualify for. And so just be very mindful of that. There has been a lot of discussion points and a lot of different advertising from builders, which is all great because it does factor and show those different pricing and prices. Just be very, very mindful of your buyer, and very similar to the different programs that are in place for buyers today and will come about in the coming weeks. It is buyer specific. And so just always make sure that you know your buyer and then speak to partners like Troy and Idan so that you're covering yourself and you're covering them. Okay, without further ado, Idan, if you are ready, why don't we jump in, because I can appreciate that the bulk of this chat is addressed and dedicated to you.
Okay. Hi, everybody. My name is Idan Mizrahi from Hst Rebate Canada. We've been helping homeowners and real estate investors applying for their various HST rebates that are available in the province and in the country to get the rebates back. I will start again to thank Troy. You saved me a lot of the legwork here, especially about the dates and the formalizations of how the rebate is going to be facilitated. And obviously, Nicole and Cora, thank you so much from the TFN group to having me and putting this together. So I had a lot to talk about the different type of rebates, but I think I'm going to change it up a little bit because I see there's a lot of questions, and I will try to address the urgent ones. I will start by one important message that was reiterated by Troy and by Nicole. The federal and the provincial government jumped the gun with the announcement on the HST rebate relief, but they forgot to do one important thing, is to provide a CRA the guideline on how to go about it. I'm in close touch with the CRA on a daily basis to get the exact guideline on how the developers and the home builders will be facilitating the rebate. And as of today at 10 a.m., they have not received any direction from the federal government yet. So this is kind of like where we at. Tomorrow morning, I'm attending the Home Builders Association Build is having a call with all of the developers and people in the industry to have a discussion. We're probably going to shed some light on how the CRA is going to be enacting the new laws. And I promise to you guys and Nicole and Troy and everybody on the call that once there's clarity, I will share it with all of you. Right now, one of the issues is that the developer does not know yet when he's writing a new APS whether he's going to be charging the full HST, and then each individual, if he's a first-time home buyer, investor, or a return client or a return purchaser, if he's going to have to apply for the rebate on his own after, or the rebate is going to be deducted, as Troy mentioned, at the time of the closing, and it's going to be appearing on the statement of adjustments. So all of that, I do not have a clear answer yet. I hope I'm going to get a better sense tomorrow after the call. So that's kind of like a short intro. So Nicole, do you want maybe for me to try to start address some of the questions?
Yeah, I think before we go there, I just want to remind everyone there's a lot of repetitive questions in the chat that we've already discussed and gone through. So Idan, I think, yeah, why don't we just go through sort of the bigger themes? I'm happy to moderate if you'd like.
Yeah, I think we can start with that, and then I can touch on some other points. I just want to make sure I see that there are many important questions here. I don't want to miss anybody. And also, as I left on the chat, and Nicole can give you guys my contact information if any of you want to contact me after on a specific deal that you guys are working on or worked on, that want to have a specific question, feel free to reach out to me. I don't want to miss anybody. So that's obvious. So I think.
So I think the first one, let's start here because it is a burning question, and brokers on the call may have buyers in this. There isn't a lot of clarity, and the question is, I have a client purchasing a $1.6 million home. The builder mentioned a full 13% HST rebate minus the $24,000 already factored into the price. Since rebates phase out above 1.5 million, can you confirm how much the rebate they can expect and whether that would be calculated before or after HST?
Okay, so first of all, excellent question. So the number one part is that even in that case, the APS must sign after April 1st, 2026, if it's in the event that it's not a first-time home buyer. That's the number one thing. The $24,000 rebate is not part of the factor of the new legislation. They're going to be looking at the rebate of the 13% based on the sliding scale after the 1.5. What we will have to do once the government is going to give the exact guideline on how they're going to look at the sliding scale, we're going to be able to provide an exact number, but it's not going to be the new rebate plus the $24,000. It's going to be the one rebate of the 13% based on the sliding scale. So we are not doing a double accounting of the new rule plus the 24,000. Forget about the 24,000. The $24,000 rebate will be in effect based on his right now today if the purchase price is above $1.85 million, and that's going to be given based on the existing new residential rental property rebate and the new housing rebate.
Okay, fantastic.
And I will touch on that, is that in the event that they are first-time home buyers, as Troy mentioned, the APSs are backdated to March 2025, and based on that, there's going to be some GST relief But again, we will have to see the exact calculation that the CRA is going to put forward in order to give the exact amount that this buyer are going to be qualified for.
Okay, I just want to pause here because there's a couple of questions on how builders are applying HST. So I'll start and then I'll pass it over for further comment. As Idan said, there's not a lot of clarity. We don't know from the CRA or the provincial or federal government right now as it stands. Is this going to be self-application, or will this be required to be applied to the builder? And that will become clear hopefully tomorrow or in some more time. But recognizing that builders are doing it very different ways, the thing that we have to be reminded of here today is that the legislation, the law is the $24,000 credit. That is what is the legal precipice right now and within agreements of purchase and sale. And so if there is a builder who is applying any further credits, just always make sure that you're consulting the mortgage approval, your bank, and also the buyer solicitor, just to get some more clarity around that, because there may be some legal verbiage in that agreement of purchase and sale that allows for that scenario. Again, we will be this session is recorded. We are going to be sending it through. There's a lot of information, a lot of dates, and a lot of detail that we're expressing today. So not to worry, we are going to be sending all the presentations, the recording, and the contact information of our presenters, so that you can just sit back, listen, absorb, and then you'll have access to everything. So then the next question we have here is raising prices now that the rebate has been announced. I can say that all of my contacts within the industry have not identified that a price increase is coming. We have to be reminded that yes, there is excitement in the industry, but by no means does that mean that, you know, sales numbers, sales volumes, and prices are back to where we've seen them and would dictate a strengthening in the market. We have seen an increase in the number of sales, and that relates to buyers just kind of waiting on the sidelines, waiting for the shoe to drop, and now there's incentive to purchase, and so that's encouraged them to come into the market. But we do need stability here before we start to see these increases. If a one-off builder is increasing prices, there's a ton of reasons why they would do that. But as an industry right now, in the conversations that I've had with colleagues, you know, major price increases are not on the horizon, you know, anytime soon. But like this topic is fluid, the market is as well. Okay, so next question. When will this rebate be applied? Is it closing statement of adjustments? So again, we've identified this. We will get some clarity on a move forward. It is one of two ways. It is either builder assigned or purchaser acquired post-closing.
It's exactly that. I would call, if you ask me, my bet, knowing CRA for working with them for the last almost 16 years, is that my gut feeling that because the developers and the builders will not want to take the risk, most likely the HST is going to be charged, and then there's going to be a rebate process to go and claim the rebate. This is my gut feeling. So based on what Troy said, don't bank on the fact that the HST is going to be waived right away, and the full 13% is going to be deducted from the purchase price on the front end. I hope it will be the case, but I will probably prepare your clients for the latter, or for the earlier, that they're going to have to come up with the HST on the closing. I see, by the way, a lot of questions here about if people can predate their APSs. Yes. So I spoke to the CRA, and it's going to be a criminal offense to try and do that. So don't advise it to your clients. Do not go back to the developers. As Nicole mentioned at the beginning, it's very unfortunate if your client sign an APS even on March 31st of 2026, he is unfortunately out of luck. The only thing I would think, again, in that scenario, but it's a very extreme one, you have the 10-day cooling off period. So you can decide on that 10-day to drop off the deal and maybe sign it later. But I will not advise to try and go back to the developers. It's unfortunate, and they will not going to do it. There was a bunch of questions about major renovations and building, like owner build homes and modular homes. Perfect. So I'll start with the easy ones. So modular homes and trailer homes that are gonna be built on a leased land, on owned land, will be part of this rebate program. So it's gonna be also eligible for the rebate. Again, same as what we've discussed on semi-detached condos, townhouses, and detached homes. It will be acted the exact same way. That's probably going to be the HST is going to be charged on the front, and then people are going to be able to apply for the rebate, so it will qualify. And the date's going to be the same thing. It's to be, if it's a first-time home buyer, it's going to be predated to the March 20th, 2025. And if it's for an investor or not a first-time home buyer, the date's going to be applicable to the time of the purchase of the mobile home or the modular home, must be after April 1st. If the owners or the purchasers of the mobile home, of the modular home, own their land prior, there's no issue, as long as the purchase of the modular home and the mobile home was signed April 1st and onwards.
Okay, great. Thank you for that.
And just touching a little bit about the owner-built homes and major renovations. So a big part of our business, and I spoke here in the past to the TFN agents, is that currently there is an existing GST, HST new housing rebate available to homeowners that are either building a brand new home or doing a complete gut job to their existing home of $16,080, as long as the fair market value of the property is above $450,000. If it's below, they can actually get up to $24,000. But fortunately, I'm not sure in Ontario where you can build a brand new home or do a complete gut job and the property value will be below $450,000. So we are normally advertising the $16,080. This program, it's only for principal residents. And based on my conversation with the CRA, there's a very good chance that they were going to be extending the new HST legislation for that scenario as well. So if you have a client that's going to be starting construction after April 1st on building a brand new home for himself as an owner-built home, or hiring a general contract to build a house for him, or if you have a client planning to do a complete gut job to his house, and when I say complete gut job, 90% of the house must be gutted, and all the drywall in the house needs to be, 90% of the drywall in the house needs to be replaced, they might gonna be eligible for the 13% new rebate as well. I'll advise you guys to reach out to me specifically on a case by case, because that's also a very big opportunity for those people who want to upgrade their homes or add a plan to build their home. So it's a big relief that might gonna be available.
All right, thank you for that. Now we have a couple of questions in the chat about worst case scenario. So what happens if there's factors or conditions that arise that makes that buyer ineligible for HST, and or if a builder has to cancel a project? Do you want to comment on what that can look and feel like? I know that this topic it's very unclear right now, but maybe from your experience, what does that look and feel like?
So I would say that much. The easy question: if the developer cancels the project, the project is getting canceled, the buyer is getting his deposits back, it's protected by carry on, and that's a simple case. Back to Troy's presentation and the dates, it's going to be clear cut. As long that the purchaser is falling within those dates, and as long that this purchaser is going to be using the property either as a first-time home buyer, principal residence, or a rental property, they're going to be eligible, with the one caveat, which is super important, which I've discussed it here in previous presentations. If somebody's planning to buy a rental, like an investment property, in order to qualify for the rebate, he must sign a one-year lease agreement. And that's in effect to the existing program right now for the rental rebate. And we've discussed it in the past that some people are thinking to Airbnb their units or sign short-term rentals. They're going to be disqualified. So in order to qualify for this program as a rental property, you got to make sure that your buyer knows that you have to sign a one-year lease in order to be eligible. And the even over and above is that not only that it needs to be a one-year lease, the first owner, the first occupied of the unit must use the property as his primary place of residence. So your tenant cannot be a corporation or any other entity other than somebody's using the property as a primary place of residence, signed on a one-year lease. Otherwise, all of the criteria that the CRA put forward should be stand, and I don't see any other risks other than if the CRA will come with any new guidelines that hasn't been contemplated before.
Okay, well, that's a good segue to one of the questions in the chat. If a buyer purchases a home as their primary residence, but purchased it under a corporation, would they be entitled to the HST rebate?
No. Excellent question. For a first-time home buyer, the property must be purchased individually. The only time it's gonna be probably eligible for the rebate if a corporation is buying the property as a rental property.
Okay, thank you for that. All right, so there are a couple of other questions in the chat that have been repetitive. I just want to be very clear for everyone because it is still coming up. The 24,000 current rebate, when the full 13% is enacted and put into legislation, will no longer apply. So it's not 13 plus the existing 24,000 rebate. As Idan mentioned earlier, it's the full 13 that we talk about. And the previous practice of the 24,000 cap rebate is now a thing of the past. And so
only after, if the purchase price is over 1.85 million, the 24,000 is still intact.
Yes. So anything under that 1.5 million, as it has been expressed, is the full 13%, and then the sliding scale. So there was a couple of other questions of what that scale looks like in between 1.501 to 1.885. We're getting clarity on that. We don't have an answer to that. And then I just wanted to mention here, because it has come up in our office with some of our agents as well. I want to remind everyone and have everyone be mindful that the HST calculation is not a 1.13 calculation. And so we caution those very elementary styled calculations. If you are looking to understand what those what the purchase prices are net of HST, you can reach out to our presenters here on the call. You can also reach out to our management team at TFN. We do use an HST calculator for our builder clients, but it is not a simple 1.13 calculation. So just everyone be mindful of that. I think that has come up and is a little bit deceiving and can get you in a lot of hot water if you're advising your clients of that.
It's a great point, Nicole, because when you look at the statement of adjustments, the HST is calculated on the purchase price. The developers and builders are putting a lot of different adjustments for development charges, for occupancy fees, and so on and so forth. So it's a great point to be mindful of that. And our team, and I'm sure Troy also, will be more than happy to assist you guys on a case-by-case situation.
Great. Okay, so I mean, there are a lot of other independent questions here that are a bit repetitive, and I hope that we've answered most of those, if not all of them. We will go through the chat with a fine-tooth comb and do a recap. Any question that we haven't gotten to, we will reach out to Troy and Idan and get their answers for you so that we can really have a holistic approach to this. And then as of tomorrow, if more information does become available, we'll be sure to update this group. We do want to thank you all for being so collaborative and interactive and attentive in this session. Troy, there is one question that keeps coming here. So builder inventory says they're closing soon. The buyer has to pay full price at closing and then claim rebate for government separately. In this case, will the bank approve and fund the mortgage based on the full purchase price, since the buyer will receive the rebate later? I believe we covered this, but just to be clear.
No, thanks, Nicole. I just tried to get a response to that. So, in this example, if the purchaser is claiming the rebate themselves after the closing of the home, then we will lend against the full purchase price inclusive of the HST. All right, because the purchase price that the buyer is going to enter into on the APS is going to be inclusive of all of the charges. After the fact, they will have to claim it themselves to gain the rebate. And so I hope that is clear. If they are not, if they are signing the rebate to the builder, in the example, like I purchase a home for $1 million, the builder is going to be claiming the rebate on my behalf as the purchaser, then we will lend against $870,000. Hope that example is clear.
Hey Troy, this is Ishan. I was the one asking the question, but what I actually am trying to get to is that eventually the buyer will get the money from the CRA, right? So in this situation, a buyer can get a home like 0% down payment, right? Because they will get their down payment back from CRA. So how banks are thinking about this situation?
Yeah, so I think I just mentioned that, like, as a blanket statement, if the HST is going to be claimed by the builder, we will not lend against the HST amount included in the purchase price. In the scenario you're describing, where the client will claim it or the purchaser will claim it themselves, we will lend against the full purchase price of the home, and then they will be responsible for claiming the rebate. In your example, I guess notionally they will get back a large portion of their down payment, but reinforcing my comment earlier, they will still need to show down payment when purchasing the home, right? The rebate cannot be used after the fact that they're going to be getting to be the down payment, right? That will not be possible, and it's against the regulators. So that won't be possible at any financial institution. I can say that very, very safely.
And then also just be very mindful that, like we had said at the top of the hour, if your buyer's requiring these rebates in order to purchase, meaning they need every dollar and cent to it, likely they're not a candidate for that purchase. And so naturally, always speak to your mortgage reps for qualification, but the rebate is a relief program of sort. And so it's either going to be relieved on their purchase price assigned by the builder, and so that HST will be factored off of the purchase price by way of balance due on closing, not necessarily on the APS front page. Or it will be that your buyer has to pay a purchase price inclusive of HST and then apply for that rebate that then can help them, put a lump sum when it comes time for mortgage renewal, or help them make those mortgage payments on a monthly basis, so on and so forth. It is a relief program, not a program to help them purchase it or require them to purchase it. We have a couple of hands up here, and I want to be very mindful of everyone's time, so we will only go over a couple of minutes. Amanda, you had your hand up first. You can take it away.
Thank you. I just have a question. Is there any insight of how long CRA will potentially take to reimburse the buyer for the HST if the buyer is having to apply it on their own? Is there any type of time frame that we can let our buyers know?
That's an excellent question. So when we submit HST rebates for, as I said, the last 16 years, we are advising people it sometimes can take up to 6 months to get the rebate back. In reality, most of our clients are getting their money back between 2 to 3 months, but it usually depends on the time of the year. If you are falling at tax season or holidays or so on and so forth, it can take up to 6 months to get the money. So that's kind of like the guidance I usually give our clients.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Perfect. And then Dev, you'll be our last question. And then we will make sure that we get all of the info to you before the end of the week.
Yeah, thank you. I have a simple question. Everything is pretty much clear for me. Could you please explain with an example, especially between the bracket of 1.5 million to 1.8 million homes, how is it going to be calculated? Like, for example, if someone buys a home worth 1.7 million within 1 year bracket, this bracket, how much will be the total tax rebate? Just one figure for 1.7 million, because it's not clear. Only that bracket is not clear. Rest, everything is clear.
You're correct. And that's what we're waiting clarity for. The calculator, the sliding scale has not been released as of yet. And so anything, unfortunately, that's in that price bracket of over 1,500,000 and the 1.885, no one's clear on it. We don't have that end number. We are hopeful. We are looking forward to tomorrow's build event and seminar to get better clarity and understanding of what that sliding scale looks like and or a calculator of sort, but it has not been released as of yet.
If I may just quickly, in the chart that I had available in my presentation, which you will get after today, it's a direct copy from the news or the media briefing that was provided by the Ontario government. In that, they have an example. And so again, I just want to share, like, I don't know this to be objectively true, Dev, and for anybody else to ask that, but on that sliding scale, they give an example where the purchase price is 1.7 million and the rebate is 69,500. Right. So if you'd like to work through that equation yourself, you can. If you'd like to do it with me, give me a call afterwards. I have an idea of how it works, looking at the old or not the old, the first time home buyer GST rebate, but we will get that information soon. When we get it, you will all be the first to know. And please do reach out after today. I think, like, one of the things that I've taken from the questions and the all of the engagement is that everybody has a client in mind. Everybody has a specific scenario that their question is tailored to, and that's where, like, that one-on-one conversation is just so much more impactful than in a group like this with like 100 individuals. So reach out to myself and Idan after today. Nicole and team at TFN will share the information, and we really look forward to continuing the dialogue.
All right.
Yeah,
Sounds
and
great.
I think it was a great summary, because also all of the developers and the builders want that clarity, because they want to start to sell homes and condos. And Dana, you were asking about the event tomorrow. Tomorrow morning, there's a webinar hosted by Build, which is the Home Builders Association. And I'm going to be attending that. And once
I think
yeah,
the
great.
industry at large is attending it. It was supposed to be for Tuesday, which we all waited with bated breath in hopes of having some more clarity for today. But unfortunately, it had to get pushed. Unfortunately, we can't send out that link. You have to be a Build member in order to attend it, but we will, no different than this seminar here. If any new information is shared, we will share it, because this is our community. That is the intention of these town halls with TFN. And we will connect you with those individuals, and potentially we'll have a round 2 of this if we get some more of that. So without further ado, everyone, thank you so very much. As a reminder, we are recording this. You will get the recorded session along with BMO slides. We thank Troy and we thank Idan. Please, everybody, feel free, reach out. These are our superstars that we would love to share with the industry. They are fantastic partners of TFN. And they're your partners at the end of the day. And so they can help you with your clients. And as soon as we have some more information, we will come back out to the community. Thank you, everyone. Enjoy your Thursday. Have a great day.